Okay, hello everyone. So for this month's Fearless Fridays, I'm here with Julie Mokhtar, someone else who I found on Instagram, the wonders of Instagram, and you're all the way in Malaysia, right? So Julie, why don't you
Yes.
tell us what you're doing today and what you used to do, and then we'll dive into the details.
Okay, sure. Hi Anna, thank you so much for having me today. It's so lovely to be able to chat with you. And okay, so I'm Julie. I am a certified ketogenic living coach. I'm based here, yeah, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And so what I do is that I help my fellow Malaysians to kickstart and sustain their ketogenic lifestyle. So I work full time on my website, ketojules.com. And so one thing you got to know about us Malaysians is that we love food. We've got really amazing foods here. So a common problem that I was noticing for a lot of people here who start doing keto is that they start to miss their local foods. And so part of the content that I work on the website is that I provide low carb reinterpretations of our local foods, and then I also kind of scope out for keto friendly restaurants that are around town, and also provide shopping guides as well for them to kind of figure out where to buy keto friendly products here in Malaysia and whether they're keto friendly or not in the first place and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's essentially what I do. Uh, so previously, I was working as a food editor. I think you can probably tell by now that food is like my thing. I was working as a food editor as at one of the largest digital content producers that we have here in Malaysia, and it was, I would say, like a dream job in most ways. I think because I part of my role was to create content centered around food, whether that was in terms of recipe videos, in terms of kind of brainstorming, sponsored content for our clients. And so I think for a lot of people, like when they heard that I was leaving the job and they're like, why? Right? Because like, I mean, I was happy. I loved it so much. It was fulfilling in so many ways. And I worked with an amazing team. I had an editor that I just really looked up to. And so people are like, okay, dude, you're so silly. Like, why are you, going to go and leave that and like, work on this really new uncertain thing that you have? But I think, it's I think the decision to leave the job is always a tough one because like kind of transitioning from a corporate life to like your own thing is always like super difficult, but I think it's just like times 10 when you just love it so much. But yeah, there were a few things that kind of just drove me to eventually decide that okay, I think it's time for me to leave and just focus on my thing.
Okay, great. So can you talk us through what those few things were then, that especially considering you had a great job, you loved it, and it was within your passion food. So what was it that led you to take the leap?
Well, I think there were two big things that kind of influenced my decision. So the first thing was I wanted to be more authentic. I mean, okay, I know it sounds like super vague right now, but what I mean is that because part of my job, my day job was really just going out to try like new foods, going to food events, and I would like because at that point I was already on the keto diet. Keto Jules was already there, so I was also producing keto content on the side, and so there I was like at my day job and like trying to eat around the carbs, and I went to like a pizza event. I was just like eating the toppings and I looked like the most ridiculous person ever. And so I felt like there was a bit of a disconnect between like like my like career person and like who I was like with the Keto Jules brand, because like on Keto Jules I was kind of trying to promote like nutritional awareness on how we choose to fuel our body, and so it just felt a bit inauthentic that I was there kind of like eating foods that were not part of what I felt was great for me. And I think at some point also it was a bit, inevitable that I had to eat some of these things because there were times when I had to be talent in the video and stuff like that, and I had to eat like burgers and stuff like that. And it's like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And so yeah, so these are the things that I just felt like, okay, I need to pick like which person I want to be, I think. And so I naturally gravitated to the keto side of things just because it's made me feel so much more centered, like physically and mentally. And so that's how the decision was made. And I think the bigger reason, actually, what made me eventually decide that I probably had to leave was that because we also worked with a lot of food brands. And while it was great, I think creatively, like, I got to work with them on kind of like brainstorming to see like, okay, what kind of cool content can we work on together? What sort of recipes can I do that can fuse their products in? But the problem is like when these food brands want to appear much healthier than they actually are to the public, and that's one of the things that I really am strongly against. Like I really believe in clear branding and transparency, and like all this sort of, I would say, misleading information that I was kind of helping them put out didn't really sit well with me at all, because I just felt like, ethically, I
Mm.
could not be okay with that. And so I figured that, okay, you know what, I don't want to be a part of the problem. I just want to be a part of, helping people and empower them to make a more informed decision when it comes to their health. And so
Mm.
that was how I decided that, okay, it's keto Jules all the way.
I love that. And keto Jules was something you'd been doing for a while alongside your day job then.
Yeah, so actually it was, I think it's actually almost a year now that I started keto Jules. Yeah.
And how come you started up that then? You said that you saw this sort of need for adapting maybe local recipes and so on, but what had you always had that idea? Had you always been entrepreneurial? Was it just sort of it just happened?
I have like zero entrepreneurial skills, to be honest. So because I had started the keto diet as well, and it was like a pretty lonely space at that time. I was like, okay, like, I mean, like steak and eggs are great and everything, but like, what if I just wanted to have like some of the foods that we have here, right? And so I figured that if I was having this problem, maybe there are all these people out there that I don't know about that could be having the same thing. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I love producing content anyway. And so I just decided that, you know what, yeah, I'll just start up like a blog and just kind of like share some ideas that I have, some recipes, and that's kind of just how it started. Yeah.
It's so interesting. It's such a good niche, and it's here we don't have as delicious food I think as you all have, but certainly takeaways and things are not very low carb friendly in terms of there's always rice and deep fried things and so on. So I think your services are needed here in the UK as well, definitely. Okay, so what were the challenges then? I guess first in terms of setting that up, since you said I'm not really entrepreneurial, so what were the difficulties there? And then also, as you said, in leaving the job, did you have any concerns about money or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that was my biggest like challenge. Monetization, I
Mm,
think, really is just because I just wanted to make sure that I could pay my
mm,
bills and like have some form of sustenance at the end of the month, kind of thing, right? So I was like, okay, I mean, I was producing all this content, but I had never actually known how to make money from it.
mm,
And so when I quit my job, it was at a time where I just like, okay, went full on and like learned all I could about entrepreneurship. So I went for like master classes.
mhm,
I'll be like listening to like webinars like the whole day, like going for seminars, going for talks, just getting to know entrepreneurs here, and just kind of like really trying to figure out like what's the best way for me to make money like long term for this business. Right. And so at this point, I was learning a lot. And then I was also starting up a lot of a few different income generators, and then just analyzing to see which one, was most profitable, and how much time did it take to make money from each one, and also how much mental and physical capacity it took to to generate this income. Because like for all these master classes that I go for, like the one thing that they will all always say is that, if you want something to be sustainable, you gotta look for something where you can make money in possibly the least amount of time with the
mm,
least resistance, right? Because like you don't want to be making money and then like, it's at the expense of your mental health or anything like that. So that was like one of the
mm,
things I was considering when I was trying to figure out what would be the best strategy for me,
mm.
monetary wise. Yeah.
Okay, because you mentioned that desire for authenticity and sort of the ethical dilemma and so on. So that seemed quite compelling in terms of leaving. But was there any thought in your mind that actually this is the wrong decision, or is this the right thing that I should be doing?
Um, to be honest, right now I feel possibly even more fulfilled than I was before,
Amazing.
because I get a lot of messages from people every day who are like, they read some articles on my blog, or they've bought my ebook, and they're like, I've lost some weight. I'm having, so much of a difference ever since I started the keto diet. And for me to be able to feel that, if I could just touch one life, that would be amazing. And the fact that there's this community that I feel that I'm helping in some way, it really solidifies that feeling that I am on the right path. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but for now, I feel like this is the space that I need to be in, and I am pretty happy to be where I am right now.
Amazing. And when did you say you left your job then?
That was about 10 months ago.
Okay, perfect. And you mentioned, doing those masterminds and podcasts and so on. Where else did you get support through the transition and then also building the business now?
Well, credit also goes to my husband, who was my financial safety net at that point, because I was like, hey, so this is my plan. I'm gonna leave my job. And he was not even like shocked or anything. He's like, okay, so how can I help? And I'm like, oh, okay. So yes, it is the plan. So he was really there for me. And my family members are amazing, and I have amazing girlfriends who are always there, because it's like, okay, so you're leaving your job, you're just basically at home most of the time, and they're like, make sure to call me out at some point just so I have human interaction and stuff like that. So I think having, a great support system has been really, really great for me. And that's really helpful for any entrepreneur, really, I think.
Yeah, it can get quite lonely otherwise, can't it? Just sitting at home all the time by yourself. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
And what would you say is the best thing then? You've mentioned a little bit around, the impact you're making, but what are the best things about your work and your lifestyle right now?
So I'm going to quote you on this, because I saw a video that you did on freedom, fulfillment, and flexibility, right? So these are like really, to be honest, like that really spoke to me on a whole other level. And those are the things that I was really looking for, even though, as I mentioned, I mean, the job that I had before was fulfilling in some way. But I think to be able to, have that freedom to make the call on every decision that is in the business. I mean, whether I fail or I succeed, really everything is on me right now. And I think that is a really great thing, because it teaches me a lot, and also it gives me a lot of freedom in a sense of I choose what sort of content I want to produce. I pick, what sort of brands that I want to continue working with that are great for the community. So that is really one of the best things that I could ever have. And flexibility is great in a sense that I have, I'm free to sort of kind of carve out my work schedule according to how I like it to be. So, I could work maybe a bit later in the morning, where I could get my workout in first or anything like that, which might have been different when I was working before, where I was, most of my energy was spent on the job. And by the time I came home, I was just like, oh my God, I'm super tired. I don't really want to be doing anything else anymore, sort of thing. So yeah, that really gives me so much more space to really work on all these other things that are also important in my life, like my health and things like that. Yeah, and I think the fact that I feel that where I am right now, it carries a lot of meaning in a sense that I am working with people in trying to better their health. And I feel like I'm having a bit more of a purpose compared to like when I was before. And I think that meaningfulness that is attached to it kind of gives it a lot more fulfillment than what I was experiencing before. So I think these are like probably the most amazing perks that I am experiencing right now.
That does sound amazing. It is powerful, isn't it? I mean, I think these things mean different things to different people, but I do see that such a common thread in terms of the freedom to make your own decisions, the creativity, the autonomy, flexibility in your day to day, and how you choose when to work and so on. But then also importantly, fulfillment, because we want to make a difference. We don't just want to have sort of an easy, sit on the beach kind of send a few emails kind of thing. Sounds maybe appealing, but ultimately we do want something a bit more meaningful. So that's great that resonates with you as well. Fantastic.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. I think like when I was working, and sometimes I would like look at, some people who would be like in coffee shops at like, like really odd hours on like weekdays or whatever. And I'm like, what do they do? Like, how come they're so free and they're like here having coffee and stuff? And I'm like at work, and I'm so happy that I'm like one of those people now. It's just so freeing that way that, you just make your own decision on when and how you want to work. Yeah, and I do love that.
I honestly don't understand what they're all doing still now, even though I'm very much a proponent of this. Every time I go to cafes around where I live, they're just full of people sitting there having coffees with their laptops, and I think it's great. But are they all students? Are they all freelancers and business
Right.
owners? I don't know, but it's
I was like,
fantastic to see it
what are they doing?
growing.
Right. Exactly.
Great. Okay. And then I guess looking at someone who's maybe in your situation, who's somewhere where they do like their job, but they really feel like either there's sort of an ethical or value kind of clash, or they just have this idea that they want to pursue. What advice would you give to them?
Well, I would say, I think there's always that decision that, okay, I have to leave, right? But I think it's always great to just make sure that you're also like, if not 100% ready, like
Mm.
99% ready, because sometimes, we have this great idea of like, okay, this is what I want to do, but then, I think it's best to kind of validate also like your business idea first, just to make sure that
Mhm.
it's gonna be okay. Because if you quit and like it doesn't work out, then it's gonna be so much harder to kind of like bounce back, I think. And so, I mean, if you really need to stay at your job first just for the financial security, I feel like it's fine. Like there's really no shame in that. And also, there's a lot of things that you could learn while you're on the job. And a lot of what I do right now, I learned from my previous job. And so I think, have a great plan, validate it, and when you feel that you are ready to do this, and then just go full steam ahead. And
Mm.
yeah.
Because you said you were doing keto Jules for a year before you quit, was that right?
So now Keto Jules has been around for a year
Okay,
from
so
this. Yeah,
so
and I
you're
quit my job about 10 months ago.
so you're only doing a couple of months actually before leaving your job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. So what was it
Yeah.
then that made you after 2 months already be like, now I'm ready. This is definitely validated. I know I can do this.
Okay, well, so because at that point I was actually already speaking to a couple of brands that I was actually just a customer really, and then I was because I was working on sponsored content with my employment at that time. And so I kind of figured that, okay, but what if I do some sponsored content with on the keto side as
Mm,
well. So I was starting to generate income from there. I was getting to know a little bit about affiliate marketing here and there. I wasn't like
mm,
super sure about it, but I was kind of getting into it. And so and at that point where I was quitting my job, it was nearing a festive period, the Ideal Fitri period that we call here. And so I figured that, okay, when I first quit my job, I'm going to sell keto cookies for the festive season first, just to kind of get some cash flow and like keep it rolling, and then see if it could work for the long run. So that was like really my plan at that point.
mm.
I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And so, can you remind us now as well, if we want to read more and get your amazing recipes and things, you mentioned your website, Instagram, and also books. So why don't you tell us where we can find out more about Keto Jules?
Okay, so all that you need to know is just on the website ketojules.com. If right now, if you are like starting keto, you kind of want to know where do you even start, sort of thing. So I have things like the keto starter guide. I also have because the festive period is coming back again soon, so I also have an ebook that kind of compiles all the recipes that we usually eat during the Ramadan season.
Hmm.
And so that is also on the website as well, and is currently available for pre-order.
Perfect. And just out of interest, then, the business model that you have, how are you monetizing then the website? You've got your books that you're selling and so on. Do you do coaching as well, or is it via sponsored content, as you said? Can you just talk us through that briefly?
Sure. So yeah, so there is the digital products, the ebooks that I do, and then I also am still continuing to do affiliate marketing. So that's one of the big income drivers as well. And I have actually recently started to do personal coaching. So before this, I was focusing a lot on the content, and
Hmm.
now that that's sort of rolling, so I now have a personal coaching income as well.
Great. So adding layers to your revenue model. That's fantastic.
Right. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was lovely to hear, and so lovely, especially to hear, how much you're enjoying it now and how worthwhile it has been for you. So, really happy that you've made this transition, and looking forward to checking out some of your content as well. So, I'm sure everyone
Uh,
else is as well.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.